Okay. Welcome, everybody, to our special public council meeting, Monday, January 17th, 2022. I call our meeting to order. There is only one item on our agenda. It's to deal with a conflict of interest issue with regard to the quarry application on Bowling Line. Could I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
So
Moved. Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So it's under planning, land use and development. Did you want to take it, Deputy Mayor? Do it, or you want me to do it?
you go ahead. I haven't.
All right, so basically what we have to deal with the board's order. So I'll just read out the order of the board. Based on information presented, the board orders that the decision by the town of Torbay on June 17, 2020 to deny final approval to Paul Quigley to establish and operate a quarry operation on 45A Bowling Line, Torbay, be reversed. In reversing the decision, the board orders that the town council of Torbay hold another vote in question of conflict of interest for Mayor Scott and Councillor Appleby regarding the quarry application, and this voting process must satisfy the requirement of Section 209 1 of the Municipalities Act, following proper voting process on the conflict of interest matter. Council then hold another vote on the applicant's request for final approval on his application. The authority and appellant are bound by the decision of the Regional Appeal Board. According to Section 46 of the Urban Rural Planning Act 2000, the decision of this Regional Appeal Board may be appealed to the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador on a question of law or jurisdiction. If this is contemplated, the appeal will be filed no later than 10 days after the appellant has received the board's decision dated December 10th, 2021. So that's everything in a nutshell. So basically, the board ordered that the conflict of interest vote that we took at the time, because it was a tie vote, wasn't valid in their opinion. So with that in mind, we are always bound by the decisions of the appeal board, and I guess we'll deal with that issue now. So, Councillor Appleby.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask council to take a vote if under Section 209 of the Municipalities Act to decide if there's a conflict as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, and to that point, I would just point out that the issue of conflict around the mayor and myself was dealt with at our last public council meeting, so I was ruled that I wasn't in conflict, so I'm okay to participate in this process right now. Okay.
So do I need to ask for a motion and then step out? Is that what I do?
You could just ask that council deal with it, and then you can step out, and somebody will make a motion.
Okay, so if you guys will take it from here,
Yep.
we'll step out, and I gotta grab my mask. Oops.
Can I just ask a question before she
Yep.
leaves?
No, I think I should step out.
No,
before
it
you
has
have
to
a
do,
discussion. I don't
no,
wanna
it
be
has to
part of
do
that.
with,
The
like,
process?
should we know the reason?
Yes,
I understood that was when you say you're in conflict, you had to state a reason why you think you're in conflict. That's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we've done
that's
in the
right.
past.
That's what I did
And then
too.
we vote on it, and that's what you done, so.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be very clear that there's a long history on this file. It's in the public, for the public to review. This is not the first question if there is a conflict, and I have asked for advice. I've received advice from the CAO, from our lawyers before the last vote, as I'm informed by the town, and I'm also informed by municipalities that I am to ask council if there is any potential for me to have any conflict issue here. And I live 3 doors down from the mayor on the same side of the road, just about the same distance from this quarry. So the reason I'm asking the question is I need confirmation from this council, one way or another, to have direction on if I vote or not, or if I should participate on this file. You're right, I understand. I did watch the meeting Monday night when I wasn't well enough to be here. I did see that council did not vote you in a conflict of interest. However, I want to be fully open and allow council to do what it wants to do. So I'm just simply going to ask the question tonight. If council feels that there's a conflict for me, and if there is, that's fine. If there isn't, that's fine. But I was advised very clearly by Municipal Affairs and all the people who provide the advice on this that I just mentioned to ask council to take the decision. So that's the reason why I want to step away before there's any discussion on this. That's why I asked if there should be a motion before I leave or not. And I just want to make sure that things are done right so that we don't have to come back to this again. So if there's a motion to be made and I should sit here for it, I'm happy to. If I should leave before a motion's made, I'm happy to do that as well. The only reason that I'm here tonight is to ask council to take a decision under section 209 if there is a potential for conflict or not. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, so in determining, before you do it, all, in determining conflict, there has to be a monetary interest, right? So I guess before, last time we did this, when we declared, we stated whether we thought there was a monetary interest or not. So do you feel that there is? We have to have a decision, we have to make a motion
Mayor,
either to say that you are in a conflict or you're not, right?
I don't have enough information to know that if I'm in a conflict or not. That's why I'm asking council. This is not a situation where it's a direct something under the act, where it's a member of my family and I would say, oh, I'm out. I live 3 doors down from you, same side of the road, same distance and space from this quarry. I am asking, the same way that you asked the question, am I in a conflict? That's what I'm here to do. And I'm asking council to take a decision with all the information that's available through the public and the information that council has at its purview to take that decision this evening.
Okay. All right,
Okay?
good enough.
Thanks.
All right, so you can step up now. All right, so Mary, I guess from the background information in the appeal board decision with regards to the reasons for the conflict, would have had to deal with potential impact to property values. That's what was discussed last time, right?
And by, yeah, the
Yeah.
thing about,
So that's all here in the background information.
but you need to look down over section 207 and that and what it entails. And that comment, I guess, from a monetary value would have had to come from the counselor that's asking if they're in conflict. They're the questions that need to be asked and answered, not, so.
So, Don, can you help her with what motion we should put forward?
Sarah 209, where a counselor is in doubt as to whether or not he or she has monetary interest. That is a conflict of interest under section 207. He or she shall make a disclosure and the council may decide. So we haven't heard really if Counselor Appleby feels that which issue's in conflict or not due to monetary
Right.
value.
She's wondering if there's a monetary benefit to it
Yeah,
or
but
not.
that normally comes, and that was the discussion that we had before this went to vote, back before Christmas.
Right.
Was Counselor Appleby stated that she was in conflict due to monetary, not gain, but could affect her negatively.
Right, so we can decide on that.
Yeah, but the rest, council wouldn't know that.
Which is what's in the appeal board decision, where a councillor is in doubt as to whether or not he or she has a monetary interest and is in conflict of interest under 207, he or she shall make a disclosure and the council may decide, question by majority vote, and its decision on the matter is final.
Okay,
So she's communicating that she's unsure, so she's asking council to make the ruling based on the information that's currently before council.
okay.
Deputy Mayor, that's the motion that we use for the mayor, because you're gonna ask for planning, is that correct, Mayor? Or
That's
you're
what
gonna
you're-
ask- Or ask from the floor.
Anybody can make the motion if they
Yeah,
want.
I
have
don't,
the wording here, so-
yeah. Like, I've had other exposure to this, and I think that it's fair that if anybody wants to make the motion, this wasn't discussed at a planning development meeting, so this
Fair enough.
is
Okay.
council
Somebody else
as a
want to make a
whole.
motion? Ralph?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would like to motion that.
You turn the microphone on, please? Thanks.
Sorry about that. I would like to motion that Councillor Appleby is not in conflict of interest on this quarry application.
Seconder?
Second.
Second. Okay, discussion? Go ahead, Randy. Pull your microphone down.
Oh, sorry. I just want to be clear that the issue at hand is whether Councillor Appleby is solely only monetary, whether her property is going to decrease or increase or whatever. I just wanted to make that clear for me. That's what we're looking at, right?
Right, any
For the conflict.
monetary.
Okay,
It's how current legislation is.
Yeah.
It's based solely on monetary.
okay,
With the new proposed legislation, there will be other parameters.
Okay.
You can't utilize that because we haven't seen the new legislation.
and that's where I was getting my confusion. Okay, perfect, perfect, thank you.
Okay, any other comment or question?
Yeah, it's, I have an issue with the potential of you being voted one way and Councillor Appleby being voted another way and being 3 houses apart from each other, and what message that could possibly send if it ends up being in an appeal court or something again. You know, in my own mind, you know, I know the way I'm gonna vote. I can't vote any differently than I voted for you, so I mean, but I think there's more people here and potential that maybe it turns out the same way, maybe it doesn't, but that's, I just see it as being, it's almost like the two should have gone at the same time with the same number of people versus what it is, but
Yeah.
it's a very unique situation to have, you know, two council members, co-council members, say, be in the same physical area that, you know, and have something that potentially affects them as well, and have both people ask for a vote and at 2 different times and have 2 possible answers.
This is the exact same conundrum that I have, and when Councillor Pollard and I, last time we had a vote, I just don't know how I can see it differently than what I saw it last time, that, again, you're at the same proximity, there is the same benefit or non-benefit. I think I do agree that it should have been done, shoulda, coulda, woulda kind of thing, but I guess we're in a bit of a different predicament now, we got to deal with it as we see here.
Reynolds?
I'd just like to say that,
I haven't said anything yet.
Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd just like to say that, you know, this, as Councillor Appleby just stated, that this has been on the go for decades. And it's been back and forth, costing each side thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think, you know, especially when it came up during last council, which I wasn't part of, but I did witness it through streamlining, that it would have been important to have everybody in the room from council to vote on such an important motion. And I feel that each of us 7, should have that opportunity. So, you know, I voted in support of the motion that was made on the mayor. He was not found in conflict. And again, with their close proximity and everything else. And it is questionable about a monetary gain, either pro or con, up or down, decrease, increase, you know. That's really questionable, but I think that because again, this might end up in appeal after appeal after appeal, so it is going to make and break this town as far as I'm concerned, because there's so many legal implications no matter what way it goes. So I you know, on this question, I think I would like to see everybody have an opportunity to vote on the motion that's going to come before us next week.
Mary? Deputy Mayor?
And the reason why I didn't want to make the motion was going to be evident, and I think The difference between the two, and this is where we came to before, is that when we asked the question about being in conflict, the mayor was certain that he wasn't in conflict, whereas the deputy mayor said she was in conflict. And the fact that it is directly across the road from her house, that it could potentially affect negatively the sale of her home. And the other part, and I'm sure everybody is after seeing it, a large part of the appeal board hearing had to do with perceived conflict and being biased and what have you. And if your home was going to be negatively impacted, then how could you, in all good conscience, vote in favor of the pit? And I think that that's where they were going, so that's why I wanted everybody else who I'm assuming is after going through this appeal and know why we're asked to do this, that I probably have additional information that everybody else didn't or don't have. And, you know, and when somebody as well, during the orientation that we had, which I didn't know before, if anyone now says they're in conflict and feels wholeheartedly that they are in conflict, they can leave anyway without it having to be a vote. So I know that from then, from whatever date that was, to that we voted on the pit that evening, that it became an issue, and where we didn't have a majority to vote for or against, it was tied, that we needed a majority, but Councillor Deputy Mayor Appleby at the time felt that she was in conflict. So, and I agree that this is difficult because of the two different scenarios where we have one saying they're not in conflict and the other one being adamant that she was. And if you think you are, you are. So.
Okay,
And that's where I see it. The word is perceived here. Perception is reality.
Yeah.
So if you perceive that you were in conflict with something, then in your own reality, that I guess you are. But this is where I have my biggest, you know, what you think of that, what's going to happen down the road or presently right now is really, it's up for grabs. You know, it's going to be like 5 years down the road, we don't know. So I guess we have to vote when somebody thinks they're in perceived conflict. There's, like Councillor Goss said, I mean, really, at the end of the day, somebody can get up and walk out and say, that's the way I feel, and that's the way I'm gonna stick to, so. That's, again, that's where I'm really up in the air with this.
okay. Councillor Manning, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, like the monetary value issue. How can we make a judgment on that? In the sense of like, I don't think I'm qualified to look at someone, and I also agree with what everyone's saying. Which Councillor Appleby seems to be, you know, she really feels that she's in conflict, and as you said, if you feel you are, and I agree too, I think you know, yeah, you would be. I'm conflicted, big time.
I think from my standpoint, when we look at this, there's a bunch of issues around conflict. And I guess the act is very clear, even though it's a bit convoluted about monetary interest with people with the application being a family member or whatever. So what I did, originally I was never going to even ask council was I in conflict because I didn't feel I was. But because of circumstances at the time, because of the proximity to where Councillor Appleby and I live, when she asked council for a decision on whether she was going to be in conflict, I felt obligated at that time that I had to do it too, because of our proximity. Now, I argued at the time, and I argue again, and I would argue that I've been in there now for probably 14 years since I built my house, and there's been 3 quarries operating there, and nothing has changed in terms of that. And my property value has only increased and hasn't done anything outside of the ordinary compared to the rest of the properties in the town. So I didn't feel that it was a negative or a positive impact there. It didn't make any difference. I would almost argue that adding ball fields and soccer fields and lights and everything at the ball field in Ballyline would have more of an impact on my property value than a business or whatever is changing. If this was the first one that was going in there, absolutely, I probably would have said, you know, that could potentially, but because there was already existing and it didn't make any difference to me, that was where I was coming from. So I still feel that way. But, you know, it's difficult to gauge the property value piece because you have to do almost an appraisal, which I figure assessment is an appraisal, right?
Yeah.
Year after year after year, and really hasn't changed that much. So that's kind of where evidence, I guess, for lack of a better word. Granted, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's anecdotal evidence, but it is the only thing that I had to base it on, is that I couldn't see how it was going to affect me. So anyway, with that, is there anybody else that has any other questions?
I just
Go
wanted to
ahead.
make a comment before we get into this, and I've asked it before in another meeting. I'm assuming that everybody has read all of this information that's in the package tonight. Because we went through this once before, because if you read down over that, I know on page 13, and going through a lot of this, so I'll just caution everybody to make sure that they have read that and what was stated at the appeal board.
Okay, all right, are we good?
No?
No? All right.
You know, if a counselor feels they're in conflict, then they declare they're in conflict and move on. I think this puts us in an awkward situation. I'm prejudging a vote, which you know, I don't know how it's gonna turn out, but for council to vote on Counselor A and Counselor B, sorry for calling you Counselor Mayor, but you know, just saying for two, you know, separate things for the same, and at two potential outcomes, I think that's to me, scary territory, really. And it just shows, you know, how many holes there are in this whole conflict of interest process. You know, I think it's, the onus is on a counselor to say yes, and failing that, then they ask us. But the same question was asked of both, and I think they should be dealt at the same time. I think they should rescind yours and come back and vote on two at the same time. So there's not potential for two.
If,
Well, council wants to do that.
if you can do that if you want, right? If you want to do that, that's fine. I'll step out, and you can do the vote on both of us at the same time, that's fine. If we don't want to, if we want to make sure that both of us are treated equally, I agree.
Doesn't matter.
All right,
It's only my suggestion.
No, I actually agree with that. I think if we're gonna deal with this, it should be dealt with one-off. It shouldn't be two different scenarios,
that's
even
fine.
though it's kind of the same scenario.
Okay.
I'd feel better about it.
So, just to be clear, no matter what way we go, at our meeting next week when this is dealt with, either one or both of you can still stand up and say, I'm in conflict and you leave.
No,
Conflict of interest.
no, because the
No?
motion of council is final. Right? It could be on a different application, yes, but not on the same question.
Okay, well, as long as that's clear.
So,
So under 2091, again, it says where a counselor is in doubt as to whether or not he or she has monetary interest and is conflict of interest, under section 207, he or she shall make a disclosure, and the council may decide the question by majority vote, and its decision on the matter is final.
okay, so we can do that, that's fine with me. We rescind the motion that we passed.
It's
Actually,
tricky territory. but that's the
I'm
only way
gonna,
I can see it.
actually, I'm gonna just turn the chair over now to the deputy mayor and let her deal with this, because now it's starting to talk about me again.
So are we going to have a motion for that, or, because until we do, if there's a motion to deal with both of you at one time, that question has been asked and it may,
Right.
you know, but I said what I said, I mean, I can't see how a council can vote on the two and have a potentially different answer. Not saying they will, and listen, we might go through a vote and might be fine. I'm just hedging against what if not. How can we stand up and say, yeah, here we are, 2 hours apart, and we voted one in conflict and one not in conflict? Like,
because one says they are and one says that they're not.
well.
To me, it's easy.
Well, as that should play out, then council shouldn't be involved in either one of it. Unless they want to challenge the person who says they're not in conflict as being conflict. You know what I'm saying? If the council gets up and says they're in conflict, unless it's challenged outside somewhere.
We didn't know that.
We abide by whatever
We didn't know
that
that
guideline is.
when we had the vote last time. We didn't realize, that's the first time me being on council all this time that I heard for the first time, and I think a number of us heard that if somebody feels strong enough that they're in conflict, that they can get up and walk away. We've always voted on it. Section, what was that, CO?
7 and 208.
Yeah, 208. So,
Like I say, I only throw it out there, it's just me, I mean, you know, it'd be nice if everybody was available to vote for this particular item at a particular time, but by the same token, you know.
So there has to be, as per the appeal board's decision or their order, council does have to vote on the question of whether Mayor Scott and Councillor Appleby are in conflict as per to satisfy the requirements of section 2091. So council does have to vote.
We already did
Turn your
vote on
microphone
one.
on.
we voted on one, huh?
Sorry, just looking at the appeal board's order, it states that council has to hold another vote on the question of conflict of interest for Mayor Scott and Councillor Appleby regarding the quarry application, and it must satisfy the requirements of section 2091 of the Municipalities Act. So council does have to vote. Now, if council wants to deal with the conflict of Mayor Scott and Councillor Appleby together in one vote, in the previous motion that was brought forward and passed on January 10th would have to be rescinded.
Were all the people here, was all the same people here? Sorry,
Mhm.
we're sort of out of the sequence of questioning and everything else, but we got any more or less people now to vote than we did last time?
Councillor Appleby was not in attendance. Councillor Manning and Councillor Goss were on Zoom.
Okay, so we got the same numbers.
Everybody else was in, Deputy Mayor, yourself, and Councillor Tapper were in person.
I'm just going to throw something in there now, and regardless if I say it now or later, but we've already had a meeting. And Mayor Scott was privileged to that meeting. So we're going back on a vote to potentially re-vote that we've already had a discussion,
Sure.
a meeting, with legal, and basically he was in there and we had said then what we had done. So for me, I don't feel comfortable going back and backtracking on all of this, whereas I guess if Councillor Appleby had been present that night, it would have been all done to one time. But just keep in mind what we're after doing. And Councillor Appleby refrained from attending that meeting until this decision was made, but we already had one on the mayor. So to me, that changes everything for me personally. Because if that was the case and it was going to be a different outcome, he shouldn't have been at that meeting. So, just saying. My opinion is to vote what we're supposed to be doing tonight and leave it at that, because no matter which way we go now, there's ramifications, and I just assume, looking at the big picture, just move on with the order of business for tonight.
I can't disagree with that, actually. I digress, because thinking in that terms, yes, we've
Yeah.
gone past the point of no return on that, I guess. So I think Counselor Thorngoss is correct on that, in my opinion.
What can I say? I don't know if there's any right or wrong answer to it, but I can go with that. But there is one extra person there tonight than there was. Right? The mayor wasn't in on the last one, so we are one out. That's why, that was what my
Yeah, because
concern was overall, but that's fine.
Counselor
I'm good.
Appleby wasn't available for the last one,
Yeah.
so.
No, I know. Call the question, I suppose.
Call the question, somebody do?
I would ask that the deputy clerk read the motion back before council votes, please.
Okay.
Just so everyone is clear what's.
All right, so you can pass the chair back to me then. I'm sorry. All right. Okay, can you read the motion back? Ann, please? Thank you.
Motion was put forward by Councillor Tapper, seconded by Councillor Pollard, that Councillor Appleby is not in a conflict of interest as it pertains to the quarry on Balling Line.
Okay,
So not in conflict.
all right. Call the question. All in favor that Councillor Appleby is not in conflict? Aye. Fails.
Why?
All in favor that she's not in conflict?
Mm-hmm.
Right, so Ralph and I voted in favor of the motion,
Not in favor.
that she's
That
not in
that
conflict.
she's not.
Right,
She's not in conflict.
and everybody else didn't vote.
Yeah, we got to ask who opposed.
Oh, opposed,
Show of hands, please, for the record.
so she is in conflict.
Yes.
All right. Weird, anyway,
Always the dilemma.
all
I
right.
was saying, how could that fail?
Hmm?
When the mayor said that failed, I'm thinking, what did I miss?
But it did fail. The motion failed.
Yeah, but we're,
All right.
Let's
I
get the
guess it's
outcome.
okay to get, okay.
Yep,
Mayor, I would suggest that you advise, Councilor Appleby when she comes back to decision of council.
yep, will do. All right, so council determined that you are in a conflict.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Q and A, we didn't receive any Q and A to be done, as pertains,
Just that one
Yeah, but-
email and the resident. The resident clarified
Yeah, okay.
or confirmed that it's okay to add to the next, the January 24th public meeting, in addition to forwarding to planning and land use for this week's committee meeting.
all right, okay, thank you. So our next public council meeting is scheduled to take place Monday, January 24th, 2022, 6:30, right here at the Torrey Council Chambers. And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, carried. All right.